Well, it's about time to look into the PoE 2 lore. Pretty cool they're bringing up the Faradun. Wonder if Nanette's going to have anything to do with it. I mean, probably not, since they dropped all those heist contracts, but the seed of corruption is pretty on the nose. Interesting the Faradun have it. Let me just look through the lore compilation. Is there any connection between Faradun and corruption? No, it can't be. This dialogue, it's from the contracts. They wouldn't do that. They can't just... Why do you taunt me with forbidden knowledge? The second Path of Exile 2 trailer shows an act where we join up with a traveling Mariketh caravan, the Ardura, to track down an evil seed of corruption. The Faradun, Mariketh rejects officially introduced into the game during Heist, have possession of this seed. PoE 2 takes place 20 years after the events of PoE 1, but there are many pieces connecting the current story and the future in this new trailer. For one, the Ardura are likely the Mariketh tribe that Adia is from in Heist. She didn't name her tribe, but she described them as a group that travels by caravan from the northern Vastiri plains. She also knows of the Faradun, something other Mariketh we've encountered, like those in Highgate, have not mentioned by name. The evil group in this trailer, these Faradun, connect back to Nanette, another Heist member. We don't learn much about Nanette's past or desires because there were 2 contracts for Nanette that didn't end up in the game. The dialogue and quest items have been data mined, but sadly Nanette still has no actual canon in-game quests. From the dialogue actually in the game, there's no explicit connection between Nanette and the future Faradun we see in the trailer. Obviously, things can change after 20 years. Adia and Nanette have animosity between them, but neither mention their tribes warring. Likely this seed of corruption that the Faradun now possess has caused extra tensions between the groups. What is the seed of corruption? Assuming it's as it seems, it has to be the original seed from which the beast was born. There's a possibility it's a completely new item or entity, but the evidence for it being the beast seed is strong. There is mention from the Hooded One in the trailer that the seed needs to be stopped once more, a callback to us taking down the beast in the current campaign. When we work with Sin, he describes the dark ember of the beast as a seed in Act 9. And in Act 6, Sin literally describes creating the beast as planting a seed. Throughout the current game, the cataclysm and the nightmare associated with the beast is described as corruption more times than I want to count. Sin, Tasuni, Oyen, Valenta, Oshabi, Vol, Victario, Nessa, Kaum. So what is the connection between the Faradun and this seed? I made a video previously about Tasuni, the Highgate Mariketh who should have been Faradun, and his connection to the beast and nightmare. Nanette also describes hearing strange voices when she's around us, and we work with Sin, the beast's creator, and utilize virtue gems that are physical embodiments of the beast's corruption. We're certainly steeped in nightmare, and the 2 Faradun, or Faradun equivalent characters we meet seem corruption sensitive, so to speak. Perhaps there's some connection between the Faradun tribe as a whole and the beast. The trailer also says that this malevolent force is 3,000 years old. The current year is around 1600 in PoE 1, so 1620 in PoE 2. 3,000 years ago is actually long before the fall of the Vol in 400 BC, about 1,000 years before that, so I suspect this date of 3,000 years refers to the creation of the beast. That would give time for people to have lived with and recorded the events of their gods before they all disappeared, put to sleep by the beast. We know that the Azmiri and Vol became more intertwined around 900 BC, about 2,500 years ago, but writings of Asmiri and Vol gods depict them as enemies. The beast's creation couldn't have been so far in the past no one wrote about the gods, but also not likely after the Asmiri and Vol integration. So, that all lines up. This seed of corruption is very probably the seed of the beast, and the Farad'n people seem to have a connection to the beast. Besides the seed being carried by Farad'n caravans, we see it appear, or at least its influence appears, in the fight with the Perennial King. This is a new boss encounter. The Farad'n defector says she was following a king, but that he was not the man she once knew when she meets our exile. The king of the Farad'n is not brought up in the current game, except in those pesky, non-existent Nanette quests. Nanette's non-canon, very interesting, and completely available for me to read questline was to learn about an ancient man named Jamonra, who had tried to unite the Farad'n and meet with the Mariketh Sekemas to allow the Farad'n to be seen as legitimate in Mariketh eyes. We learn that the Sekemas killed Jamonra when he sought acceptance for the Farad'n, and Nanette's reaction is to find Jamonra's tomb and raise him from the dead by empowering him with corruption. Are you kidding me? Is this why GGG took out these contracts? Because they have a direct and amazing connection to the story of PoE 2? I had assumed maybe there was a bug in the boss fight, but how could they take out such an exciting story? So let me give you the details, but bear in mind, this is all alleged even if we can look at the text in front of us. Nanette's first non-existent contract for us is to find a Book of Jamonra, a story about a bold warrior who wanted to unite the Farad'n for the purpose of bringing them back into the Mariketh, or at least being recognized by the Mariketh as a legitimate and equal tribe. We know that Adia claims she doesn't hate Nanette or the Farad'n, she simply doesn't think of her at all, so it's likely that before Path of Exile 2, the Farad'n were known, but pointedly ignored by the Mariketh. Nanette wants recognition for herself and the Farad'n, and Jamonra had attempted that in the past. But when we retrieve the book, theoretically, it says that the Sekemas Jamonra met with poisoned him, rather than listening to his plight or fighting him honorably. After reading this, Nanette decides the Mariketh will never willingly take in or recognize the Farad'n, and she's probably right. But her solution isn't to back down, it's to go find Jamonra's grave. She says, "In this land of madness, where the dead rise and legendary figures return, I have a reasonable suspicion Jamonra can be found and released from his tomb. Jamonra can finish what he began thousands of years ago, and if he is empowered by corruption this time around, then no cowardly poison will be able to stop him." It's important to notice here that Nanette no longer wants to appease the Mariketh. She is simply raising Jamonra as a leader powerful enough to protect the Farad'n from any Mariketh attacks, and with the power of corruption, he will not be poisoned or killed easily. So in our second non-existent contract, called Jamonra's Rest, we take Nanette to Jamonra's grave. We can only presume what goes down here, but I'm quite sure Nanette succeeds in resurrecting Jamonra, since she says at the end of the contract that Jamonra was a raving mad monster. While we'll never know for sure, here's what I assume happens. Nanette brings some corruption to Jamonra's tomb, he is resurrected, a fight goes down and either Nanette kills Jamonra or Jamonra escapes. I'm pretty confident in saying we were intended to fight Jamonra, as his monster information exists in PoEDB. Since there's no dialogue data mined during the contract itself, we can't know what happened. But let's assume it's the latter. We raise Jamonra, Nanette tries to convince him to become leader of the Farad'n, a fight ensues, and the now corrupted Jamonra escapes. Whether Jamonra was always a raving mad monster that the Mariketh were right to kill, or if the corruption and raising from the dead turned him mad, if he escaped, especially with the aid of corruption, It's very possible that the perennial king we see in Path of Exile 2 is Jamonra. He might have actually gone to lead the Faradun, but led them down a path of nightmare and corruption, having them dig out the seed Sin planted in the Highgate Mountains, now carrying the seed of corruption with them on their caravans. Nanette doesn't say she wants to lead the Faradun or even return to them after this contract. If anything, she is completely defeated. She wants to continue living with the rogues and drink her problems away. All in all, I can say with confidence that this seed of corruption is the beast's seed that Sin claims to have planted so long ago, maybe even exactly 3,000 years ago as mentioned in the trailer. The Faradun, deformed members of the Mariketh, have so far hinted at an innate connection to the beast and nightmare. Maybe their deformities arise from being so close to the seed of the beast itself, their physical maladies being a representation of the corruption they are born with, like marks of the nightmare. Will we see Nanette in Path of Exile 2? I don't think so. Is the Perennial King actually Jamonra? Maybe. Is the connection between the Seed of Corruption and the Faradun already established and a plausible arc regardless? Absolutely. Now, for the real question, how can I blame this all on Tasuni? Thank you so much for watching, it's your boy Noodle. Once again, I've been debated with the missing Nanette contracts. If you like this video, like and subscribe. I'm also on a podcast called Baited Expectations. The link for that is in the description below, as well as some other socials and whatnot. This Faradun stuff is going to drive me insane, but I hope you can stay sane, Exile.
choke you down.